Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Delaware Orthopedic Specialists. Spring has officially sprung, and you know what that means. All the weekend warriors dusting off their gear and trying way too hard to relive the glory days, and you know what's going to happen. Hip, ankle, foot, leg, knee, shoulder, injuries. Where else should you go other than Delaware Orthopedic Specialists? I don't know. DOS has specialists trained in each and every part of the body, so you're getting a provider specifically assigned to that part of the body. Why would you trust anyone other than a specialist? The only fellowship-trained surgery center in the state of Delaware makes it a no-brainer. Head on over to delortho.com or give them a call at 302-655-9494. I'm telling you, my family's gone there. My friends have gone there. Check out their Google reviews. They are phenomenal. DOS. Don't trust anyone other than a specialist.
Welcome to Talkin 215, your go-to podcast for everything you need to know about Philly sports. Whether you bleed green, trust the process, fly with the Flyers, or fight with the Fightins, this is the place where we break down Broad Street. Jake, Shawn, and Joey deep dive into the heart of Philly sports culture, breaking down games, roster moves, and sharing the stories that make the 215 truly legendary. So grab a cheesesteak, settle in, and let's get to Talkin 215. Now here's your host, Jake Biasado.
I'm just going to jump right into it. I understand a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you guys talk so much crap on WIP for headlines like this and everything. But Shawn, I saw you comment on it. And Doc, I want your opinion again as somebody who's not old, but more seasoned than us. You've seen some Eagles legends throughout the years. How do we feel about the way Jason Kelce has handled his post-football career and his status as an Eagles legend?
In terms of what he's
Shawn,
been doing with his life since then?
Yeah, I'm going to hand the mic over to Shawn and let him kind of run with his thought process on it, because I was more in agreement with Shawn here and some of the tweets he posted than some of the other people. And this is, obviously coming up with Brandon Graham retiring, who is another all-time Eagles legend, just on the field, off the field, everything he does on the radio, everything he does with the teammate, just a true leader in that room. And then, people have brought up just some of the things that Jason Kelce has done with the Super Bowl, with not being at Brandon Graham's retirement, with just some of the decisions he makes to Shawn, I'll let you run with it.
Yeah. So this flies right on the back of Jason not being at BG's retirement, but you saw guys like Fletcher Cox took the time to hang out with their guy and celebrate a very long and successful 15-year career with the Eagles. So I don't even want to spend too much time nitpicking right here. I think it comes down to is I've expected that Jason Kelce would be this all Philadelphia guy coming into retirement. He'd be spending a lot of the time around the team. He'd be a very pro Eagles kind of talking head whenever you saw him up and about in the media. And a year or so into his retirement, that's not what we've seen, right? We've seen the guy go to international stardom with the New Heights podcast. You see the guy on like Good Morning America. He was doing all the different sort of talk shows and talking head segments, and he was up and dancing and jumping around, and he was almost seemed like he was taking like the Michael Strahan route of just doing literally everything like national. He was kind of a national darling here. And when it came down to actually being a Philadelphia Eagle, once he retired, he has not been a Philadelphia Eagle in any way, shape, or form, right? I mean, I understand in each isolated incident, I understand being a little torn that your brother just got mollywopped in the Super Bowl, right? I get not being just 100% ecstatic for all your guys, right? I understand kind of having the obligations when it comes to, maybe he didn't know the exact day that Brandon was going to announce his retirement. He probably did, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Each one of these are individual instances that you can kind of brush off and say, yeah, okay, well, maybe, there's always these extenuating circumstances. But bottom line is, we have not seen Jason Kelce in a moment unless it benefited him financially, unless he was making an appearance on national media, unless he was getting a paid gig. I have seen him on top of my refrigerator on a cereal box more often than I have seen him actually showing support for a Philadelphia Eagle. Okay. And that is where my expectations have totally not been met. Okay. I was fully expecting him to be Ryan Howard, and in turn, he's been Chase Utley. Okay. In 10 years, none of this is going to matter. I'm still going to love the guy. I
Oh, of
still do
course.
now. But right now, I was expecting Mr. Mummer's Parade suit guy to show up and be a little more pro Philly. And to this point, he has been pro Jason Kelsey and pro Jason Kelsey only.
I mean, I think that those are all valid points. I mean, one thing I would counter just briefly was if it was Lane Johnson that retired and not Brandon Graham, I 100% expect him to be there. I think Fletcher has definitely made more of a presence here, but I don't think he has the opportunities that Jason does. And, I think he should have been. I agree with you about the Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, his brother got his butt whooped, but his brother won 2 in a row just before that and beat him. So I have no sympathy for Travis Kelsey, and neither should he. I mean, he's got everything.
He's 3.
Yeah. So I'm like, so
that
what?
was one person versus 50 people on this team.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. 100%. I just say, yeah, you're my brother. Great. It's our turn. And I agree. I mean, he did make a big presence. He was at the Phillies games before he retired, hugging the fanatic and all this stuff. And, in retrospect, he got his own talk show. He got all those other things, and he benefited greatly from our passion, I think. And that's part of it. If he was playing his career in Cincinnati or in San Diego, he would not be the Jason Kelsey who we see now. And I think he has so far given us little in return. I agree with that.
Yeah. No, so like Sean's point was, isolated incidents you can let go, but when it's every single time, it's like, hey man,
I just expected a
what
guy
about
that wanted to be in the limelight to actually be like a pro Philly kind of guy. If he just drifted away into the darkness, that's fine. Tons of players do that each and every year. Tons of very good players, right, in a market like Cincinnati would say, all right, thanks guys, I'll see you at induction ceremonies or something like that, and I'm just gonna go live my life in the meantime. But this is a guy that wanted every single ounce of attention he could get his grubby little hands on, right, for a while. And now whenever anything comes up Philadelphia, anything comes up Philly, he's got Ben Stiller on a podcast. Guys, Ben Stiller hasn't been relevant since Heavyweights came out in 1992.
Night at the Museum was a good movie.
And you know what? Zoolander was all right as well. That still came out 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd love Ben Stiller on the pod. I don't know what you're talking about.
It just comes up to, what were your expectations? What did you expect of the guy? And maybe mine were just entirely too high. Maybe I expected him to still be that guy when he had absolutely no intentions of it. Maybe I missed where he said that somewhere, and I'm completely overblown my reaction to all this.
No, I mean, I think this falls perfectly into, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. But look, this is a guy who the final 3 seasons of his career was always this heartfelt video of why, we're going to go at least one more. I'll bleed for this city. I'll die for this city. How he sent me a keg, these fun videos where he's just, I'm going to do everything for Philly, Philly, goes nuts at the parade, has the all-time Super Bowl parade speech. And I want to emphasize the fact that we're saying, look, we still love Jason Kelsey, but we're disappointed.
I will get over this pretty quickly, I'm sure. But just in the moment, in the heat of the moment, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, it's still very disappointing. And I get it. He wants to get his. And look, he's very successful. It's working. And Shawn, I want to ask you, I don't follow JJ Watt very, very closely, so I don't know if he's really big Texans or not, but it kind of seems like it's a JJ Watt trend. Like, he's big on Pat McAfee on ESPN and doing all kinds of stuff. I don't see him really going crazy pro Texans or anything like that. So maybe similar to that, but it really does seem like Jason's going to the nth degree where, I mean, shout out us having cereal on top of the fridge. That seems like a probably pretty common thing, but I related to that. I'm looking at a box of honey bunches of wheat or honey bunches of oats with almonds right up here. Great cereal.
Now, have you had the Kelsey mix?
I have not.
Okay. Maybe the audience is going to think I'm overreacting. It is a bad cereal. Okay. And it's just a good time to bring this up. It's like a mixture of 3 different ones. It's like Cinnamon Toast Crunch and I don't know. It's an abomination.
Well, look,
I'm pile it on, Jason.
I'm going to say something very hot take-ish, or not even hot take-ish, very, very risky. I had garage beer on tap and I could not finish it.
Really?
It was one of the worst beers I've had in a long time. And I wanted to love it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really did. And again, it was in a weird place. I had it in Tennessee. And so it just said garage beer, whatever. And I looked it up and I couldn't find any other brewery other than like Jason and Travis Kelce's garage beer. Maybe there's some other tiny craft brewery in Tennessee that I couldn't find. That was garage beer, Tennessee, and not theirs, but it just said garage beer on tap. It wasn't like a big bar. It wasn't a sports bar. So again, there's a decent shot that it wasn't his, but if it was very bad. So
I think he's just spreading himself a little too thin here, guys.
I know Glenn Macnow, big beer guy, Glenn Macnow agrees and put on a taste test of 5. He put garage beer as 5th.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
he was not happy when he did that, but it was blind. He said it was the worst. I haven't heard anything good about it.
Hey, and shout out Chase U Lager, Glenn Macnow's number 1 on that episode. Our friend Chase U with Vault Brewing teaming up to make a delicious Chase U Lager. Also, finally kicked the keg on the kegerator over here. So, Vault, send me a keg of Lager. I'll top her off. But anyway, look, we spent far too long on that. It was just a hot button topic. And again, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack because we're like, that's a headline. That's a headline you'd see on WIP of, is Jason Kelce, losing your love due to his actions and all. And that's something where we would be ripping him for. But because of how much we love Jason Kelce and how much
it's just
from it.
It's there's a couple different instances now when it seems like where anybody speaks up and says, hey man, does this feel a little weird to you? There's like 100 people that are like, no man, you're weird for even thinking that way. So it's like, it's just this weird like kind of group think that you see, especially amongst like Eagles Twitter or Eagles X or whatever you want to call it, to where it's like, if you say something negatively, the whole gang is going to jump on you for it. And it's like, no, it's ridiculous. There's different levels. I'm not at a 10 out of 10. I don't hate Jason Kelce here, but I do think it's a bit disappointing the way he hasn't reached out to be that Eagle that we've all come to know and love.
Very disappointing.
And the other interesting thing is he still lives here. It's not like he moved back to Ohio. He's in the neighborhood. He could easily get to the link if he wanted to. He could be there, and that to me is another issue. I mean, I know he has a lot of obligations and all that, but for something like this, he should make the time. I mean, it was on a Tuesday, I mean, how busy are you? Retired on
Ben Stiller, Doc, come
on. He's not incredibly active on social media. Yeah, but he's active enough. He's active enough to post about his podcast pretty frequently. Not one post about Brandon Graham.
Yeah. Now, it's disappointing. He did mention something on the New Heights. He did have a segment.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Then I completely backtrack.
I checked earlier. I'm like, there's no way the guy doesn't tweet about BG at all. He doesn't have like a picture together with something like that. That felt a little strange to me. They did do a segment on New Heights about it.
Then I completely take that back. I wasn't able to find it. Okay. Doc, I have had a question that I've been dying to ask you, because there's a tale of 2 different teams. There's an Eagles team that I believe has either 4 or 5 players that are of the age of 30 or older. And there is a Phillies team that is full of geriatrics. Obviously, baseball is a much less contact sport. It's far less chance of these injuries that you're seeing in football or anything. But with 162 games and with a team that's average age seems like it's 32 to 33, what kind of risk can we see on these guys' bodies, who most of these guys are, like most of these older guys are their starter players going to be playing 140 plus games, not including spring training? Like, is this something that we should be worried about?
I think to an extent. I mean, obviously you're comparing apples to oranges squarely, because much different sport, much harder toll on the body in football, and B, the nature of baseball is you don't just go right from college into the pros. I mean, they have an extensive farm system. It takes a while to earn your stripes. So in that, the ages tend to be older just in general. but
Yeah,
we're striking because we are such a young team football wise. I mean, you're counting the kicker and the long snapper is
exactly
over 30 guys. So there's that. But
tell you, what does Doc not know?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's 2 out of 4 and Lane Johnson. So, I mean, I think that it's a sport that you have more longevity than football, obviously, but
no, without a doubt.
There are tolls. I mean, you start to get these overuse things, and you're right. It is a long season, and they keep stretching out, and there is tolls to that. I think that what you see in terms of tolls, or you see people, how baseball players deal with it, is they have the luxury, especially now that there's a DH in the National League. You get some of your, JT Realmuto is not going to catch for very much longer. He's going to be moved somewhere, whether it's DH or first base like he wants. There's going to be changes, and I think that's
the White Sox.
Correct. There's ways to adapt. There's ways to adapt, and I think that it is a grueling sport, especially in certain positions, and I think you can kind of move it around a little bit. But yeah, it definitely takes its toll. I mean, and people, there's not many players in Major League Baseball that haven't gotten to this position without having significant injuries. I mean, every pitcher's probably had an elbow or shoulder surgery before they reach the pro level, and now it gets added on. So I do think there's definitely a toll, but I don't think it's as dramatic as the drop-off's not as dramatic as the NFL.
Well, in conjunction with that, and with what you said last week when we were talking about Brandon Graham with his tricep injury, as well as Nolan Smith with his, and you were saying the effect that just an older body is going to be obviously slower to recover and not going to be recovering as well as Nolan Smith in his early 20s and everything. If a Philly was to have an injury this season, is it safe to assume that their recovery is going to be slower than what we'd expect if it was a young prospect just coming up? Are they going to be missing more time due to the fact that it's cumulative on top of their age?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take the athlete out of the situation and you just talk about the human body, as we age, things change. So we start seeing injuries in people that are non-athletes, in patients in their 40s and beyond, that we don't see in younger people. Why? Because the actual anatomy changes a little bit. There is the use, and there's also changes in the blood supply. So that's why it's not common to see rotator cuff tears in younger patients. We see them in older patients, and we see ruptures of tendons more commonly as we get older. So yeah, there is definitely changes in the blood supply and therefore the tendon. When we're younger, we have a great blood supply to the tissue. So if we do damage to it, the body's working overnight to heal the damage. But as we get older, that blood supply changes and the healing rate gets longer. So you get this injury or this, irritation to the tendon. If you're young, it heals overnight or in a couple days. If you're older, it takes a little bit longer. And if you're in season and you keep playing, you do a little bit damage, and then it just goes. And that's why you deal with patients. You look at McCaffrey. He was fighting those ankle injuries pretty much all season. And I'm sure he's probably not 100% because these things, I mean, maybe now that he's rested it for a period, but it definitely takes longer to come back from these injuries because our body is different as we age. So there is definitely an advantage to someone younger in terms of recovery. Excellent. And we try to cheat by giving supplements and all these things. We're trying to get back to that state where we're, young and things heal quicker. Yeah. But there is definitely cumulative trauma. I tell patients with knee issues, there's only so many times you can patch a tire before you need a new one. So we do our best to try to keep people on the field or walking or whatever, but inevitably there's enough damage, and maybe looking at certain basketball player, that it may not be fixable.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm glad you brought up basketball because what got me thinking about this whole thing wasn't the tweet where it was about the 4 players on the Eagles team that are 30. Yeah. It wasn't about a tweet highlighting all of the 30 plus players on the Phillies, but it was just the fact that Joel Embiid, cumulative, not so much age, still up there, but it was the cumulative. And then the fact of Paul George, which is age and cumulative. And that got me thinking, oh, hey, I did see that tweet about the Eagles. I did see that tweet about the Phillies and their age. Man, like we're seeing these guys that were supposed to be big contributors to this team that are missing time, one due to cumulative damage in Joel Embiid, and one due to cumulative damage and the fact that he's old as shit in Paul George. And we were on the same page, Doc, before they signed him, that we were like, look, if you can get Paul George for 2 years, sure.
Right.
But anything above that, I don't want to do that. Like that, if he's like, nope, I won't sign unless you get 4 years. He's like, great, best of luck.
Yeah.
Go get your 4 years somewhere else.
There is a definite fall off. I mean, you look at some of the players that the Sixers have trotted out as backup centers, and what do they all have in common? They were like players of the year at one point, and now they can jump about an inch high. And that's what happens. You just lose that bounce, lose that spring. And I'm sorry, but these guys are probably right along that area. They're not that far off from like an Andre Drummond, or who's actually still playing decent, but he's not the player he was, the players. It's funny, like the backup centers we've rolled through here. I'm like, yeah, these guys were great 5 years ago, and I mean, that's
let's not be talking about Boban.
Yeah.
Boban's my boy.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I just think you get to this point where, like you said, you can only hit it so many times. And the cartilage is one of the most valuable assets we have in the musculoskeletal system because it cushions the joints. It makes these joints workable. And once you lose that cartilage, we don't have a good answer for that. We don't. You can ask all
Not
these,
yet.
You can ask Odin and all these other guys who were supers. I mean, Greg Oden in Ohio State was a monster. I mean, he got picked in front of what's his name? Kevin Durant, because he was like, oh, this guy's wonderful. And then a knee injury just hobbled him. Bynum, same thing, although he had other issues. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was his knee that failed him. I think, it's very fragile. I mean, you think of a guy that's 7 foot tall and your cartilage is about yay thin, and that's going to wear out. And once it does, it's a problem.
No, for somebody, Shawn, you said it 3 months ago. My filler word is no. I say it every time I start every sentence. When it goes back to me, I go, no.
Yeah.
So you're right. You're right.
Yep.
I just get concerned because I see these polls of should the Phillies re-sign Kyle Schwarber? Should the Phillies re-sign JT Realmuto? Should the Phillies extend Nick Castellanos? Should the Phillies do? And it's just, hey, man, I am so glad that the Phillies aren't dog shit. That was a brutal 11 years. I really don't want to go through a drought like that again. What caused that drought? We held on to guys for way too long and tried to bring everything out of them, and we didn't make any kind of moves to get value for them. We just said these guys are going to be the guys forever and ever, and then we went into an awful, awful drought where we're watching guys that I can't even name anymore play out there and go out on the diamond. And I'm seeing these polls where there's people voting, confidently, we need to bring back Kyle Schwarber. I love Schwarber. Schwarbombs are great. He's a great guy, a great leader. You hear all the time that he leads these player-only meetings. That's great. I don't want him after this year. I'm not. If they sign him for a 2-year, I'd be very happy. It's similar to Paul George. Like, you want to get him for 2 more years while you groom the next DH? Sure.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with JT Realmuto after this. Thank you for everything you did. At one point, you were the best catcher in the game. You're not anymore.
Right.
Like, at some point, we need to start bringing this youth up. And I mean, hopefully you're seeing it with Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford. You're seeing, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but the catcher prospect that they're hoping to come up in 2 or 3 years. Like, you're seeing these flashes. Rincon Jr. is showing a lot in spring training, but it's just,
you're seeing flashes for infielders, though. That's the thing. Schwarber, you can say, okay, if there's a guy that's getting older, you hang on to the power hitting DH. To hell with it. He's going to age better than anybody. He's just been on the bench for the entire night, right? A guy like JT, no, we need a succession plan. We needed it last year, right? I mean, a guy like Castellanos. I mean, I think he's got 1 more year left on his deal.
He does.
That's a guy that you need a succession plan for. As much as I love the guy, he's not coming back, right? We do have some youth that needs to be pulled up, but they're all in the infield, which is where the only place where we have some semblance of youth as it is, though, right? I mean,
you got Stott, you got Bohm, who's not too old. He's not young, but he's not one of the old guys. Is he still in the daycare?
That's one of the guys that you might be able to actually recoup a little something for, I would think.
Oh, right? For sure.
Being able to move on from him. He's what is this? Is the age 20?
This is his arbitration. Yeah, it's 28 arbitration.
Yeah, they definitely have some decisions they need to be making long term, like, because the time is running out for this team, guys. I mean, we've got Harper. We're gonna have Trey for a while. Some of this pitching staff. That's it. That's all I can guarantee.
Yeah, and that's just the concern I have because I can't go through another stretch like that. And I'm seeing some decisions being made that it's just at some point we're going to have to start bringing up some youth and hoping they pan out. And look, yesterday Scott Kingery was DFA'd by the Angels, and I get it. There's that risk. There's that risk that you're like, hey, this guy's showing a lot of promise in the minors. Let's lock him up to an 8-year deal because you want to lock him up early for what you think could be a bargain, and they end up being Scott Kingery, and you're paying a guy $8 to $10 million to never leave AAA, and eventually he's a throw-in in a trade for nobody. That's a risk that I really don't care about. Like, again, I made my thoughts on John Middleton and his money very clear. I don't care. Go out. You're making generational wealth. Go out there and pull the trigger. Sign the guy that you think, because look, if you feel like that's a young guy that's 18 and he has 5 tools and could go out there and be a franchise altering player, and you go out and you spend the money on him and he doesn't pan out, I don't care. I'm happy that you thought, no, like I'm upset, but I'm not mad at John Middleton. I'm like, hey, you know what? You thought that was your guy and it didn't work out. That sucks, but thank you for taking that shot. Thank you for taking that risk, because at one time it's going to hit.
Yeah, but we also say the same thing in the complete inverse, where we're going, okay, yeah, we've got a good prospect that's a 5-tool kid. He's 18 years old. We don't know what he's going to turn into. We better get a bona fide major leaguer out of this guy, even if he's not a stud. If you can find an everyday center fielder at this point, dude, sign me up. So it's very context dependent.
Yeah,
right? You have a team that's I think the average age of the players this year is going to be 28 and a half, 28.7, something like that. So we're not a young team. We're not a young team. It really depends from position to position here, right? We do have these younger guys, some of the younger guys in the outfield. Who do we have in the farm system that's worth a damn? I don't know how many of these guys. It seems like we've got a good pitching staff. We will have a good pitching staff into the future. Despite Wheeler getting a little bit older, Nola's starting to creep up in age. He's still got a couple good years left, but I don't know where the future of this team lies, but if we continue to kind of sit on our hands, especially when it comes to the bats, we're going to get really old really fast.
Apparently the Phillies are 18th in the MLB in average age, but it just doesn't seem right. Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like their average age is 27.8 years. I think that's counting some people. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong resource, because
I got 28.4.
Okay.
But that's Google's AI, so that might not even be in the right sport.
I don't know. It seems like the big players that we're counting on are all older, and we've seen guys play up almost till 40 at a very high level, and that could happen. It's just at some point you need a little bit of a youth influx, and again,
bucks for
this year.
You just need your daycare to step up. You need Bohm to be a guy for 162 games a season. You need Stott. Hopefully that elbow was an actual thing here, and we have the 2023 Stott, not the 2024 Stott, and that he naturally progresses. Right? I mean, we're not too far away. There just are. We need a center fielder. We need an everyday. We need a Marsh to step up. We need Rojas to actually.
Yeah, we need Marsh to learn how to hit against lefties, and then he's good. Because I love everything else about him.
That's a tall task, right? But he's got it. Somebody's got to get better. Somebody's got to get better and state themselves and prove themselves as the guy, right? If we should step up and have the guy, then we'll be all right. But if none of these kids can prove to be above average players, then no, because we're not going to end up being able to pay $20-30 million a year for every single position player that we have. That's just not the way that money works. There's just not enough revenue around all the way around.
And I'm not talking about this season. Like, I'm just saying, hey, the direction this team is headed for Schwarber, JT being contract years for them, like what you're going to see the direction this team takes by how they handle those situations, as well as Castellanos the year following and just a number of other guys. I think they're poised, like we had Ben Silver on. He's very optimistic about this team. He thinks this is a great team. And I agree. We have arguably the best starting rotation in baseball. Or we should, like on paper, we have arguably the best starting 5 in baseball, and that's even before Painter comes up. We have what should be a great lineup, 1 through 7. has potential, 1 through 6 at least, at a minimum, has potential to be a great starting lineup. I'm just a little bit concerned about the future. And again, this is just kind of filler. We're in the dog days of podcasting for Philadelphia sports. Our basketball team is abysmal. Our hockey team, I'm praying, loses because they are good enough to win, but they have 6 picks in the first 2 rounds over the next 2 years. And I'd rather have as high of a picks as possible. And I understand we only control 4 of those, but I would still rather have those 4 picks be as high as possible. Lose, lose, lose. Like I see them go to overtime. I'm like, damn it. Couldn't have just lost in style.
Yeah. And I don't think Grimes got the memo either.
No. I mean, I saw a headline.
Well, he's playing for a job.
I saw a headline today. It was like Sixers attempt to tank by giving starting jobs to guys doing whatever they can to stay in the NBA. And it's like, yeah, like these guys are going to go out there and play their absolute hardest because they want to stay in this league. And I'm not mad at them. Like screw Daryl Morey. Like this guy's an absolute clown.
Yeah.
Listen, the Sixers are cursed. Like they're going to end up with no first round pick. I don't know how. Like we're not getting a protected pick. Like there's just too much evil. There's too much bad aura around this.
How are we not getting a protected pick? What does it have to be protected?
Outside of the top 6.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got to be
inside the top 6.
Yeah. Top 6.
I mean, we're pretty bad.
We're right there. I think we're like the 7th right now, or perhaps tied for 6th worst record in the NBA.
Let's see. The Sixers are currently sitting 12th in the East at 23-45, 22 games below 500. And in the league, they are sitting 25th out of 30. They are right there. They are the 6th worst team in the NBA right now. They're right there.
Yeah.
They could do it.
The team ever failed to meet expectations so greatly than the 24-25 Philadelphia 76ers?
That's a great question. The Eagles dream team.
Okay, but what was like the differential between what we all kind of expected them to be and then where did they end up falling? What did we end up that year? What was our record?
It wasn't good. We beat the Patriots though in Foxborough.
Like when we were
7-9.
That was the one shining moment.
I'm looking it up. That was that was the 2011 season?
Yes.
Eagles 2011 season. We went 8-8.
8-8.
Yep, I was going to say
second in the NFC East. And the next
That's
season we were 4-12.
Yeah, that was the Andy Sayonara Swan Song season.
And that was a team that had no business being 4-12. We had Vic, McCoy, Jackson, Macklin, Selleck.
Asamoah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean,
we had a coach that was not prepared to get his team ready to play on Sundays.
And a great defensive coordinator. We had the best defensive coordinator in the NFL.
Juan Castillo, baby.
Yeah.
Great 3 technique.
Yeah. You make that call, you're saying I want out of here. That was Andy's like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. Thank you.
24-year-old LaShawn McCoy, 200 rushing attempts for only 840 yards, only 2 touchdowns rushing that entire season for shady LaShawn McCoy.
So yeah, I listen, this was a team that was supposed to take us to the Eastern Conference Finals like it seems to do every other year, and they're the 5th worst in the entire league.
No, it's like it seems they're supposed to do every other year. They don't do it. They've never been to an Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah.
So it's the team that's supposed to, and they are 5th worst in the league. 1 loss away for being tied for 4th worst. Let's go. I mean, they're down 20 right now. So we're off to a good start.
If there's no way but they still have to play the Wizards, so they're going to win 1.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the Wizards are playing for that.
The Wizards are tied for worst in the NBA. No, the Jazz are worse because they play 2 more games and they've lost both of those games.
Yeah.
Jazz aren't out of it. They're only 41.5 games out. Like, there's a shot.
Yeah. It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah. It's a shame because like I love all of our Philadelphia teams, but it's just hard to be a Sixers team that from ownership down, you're just like, I hate everybody not named Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I can't wait. You talk about, I mean, the time is running out for this Phillies team. Like, I can't wait for this 76ers team to be over and done with, and we can just start fresh. Like as
And
much
we
as
were
I love
offered
these guys,
7 first-round picks for Joel Embiid,
I'd give them up yesterday. I
and
mean,
we turned him down.
what are we waiting for here? What's the ultimate goal? Like I'll miss Maxey. I mean, Maxey's the one person that you expect to be in the next regime, next,
You'd hope so.
iteration.
You'd hope so.
Well, your two best players are the same player. Taking Embiid and Paul George. You got McCain, you got the rookie, and you got Maxey. They're basically the same person. So you build a team with two equals. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And you can't really build through the draft because you gave all those picks away. So it's a problem. And nobody's taken either George's or Embiid's contract away from you. Nobody's doing you that.
No. And we traded a decent player at the deadline and gave up a pick just so somebody would take their salary.
Yep.
For what?
It's miserable.
For nothing. We were going to make no substantial signings. Tobias Harris is having a better year than Paul George.
Yep.
Paul George, hey, shout out. He can podcast again. He's out for the year. He can get back on the mic.
Podcast P.
Podcast P. Love that.
I just hope that this means it's the death toll for the process, because I think that curse, Silver has hated us since that started. And I think if Embiid's over, then I guess we can wash our hands of that whole thing and move on.
I guess. I do want to ask one more thing before we wrap it up. I was talking to a buddy of mine who came in from out of town. He's actually moving into Philly. He's a longtime friend of mine from New York. He's a Giants fan, but he's from New York. And if you're rooting for your own team, like I don't like it. Like I'm like, screw the Giants. But it's like, if it's the team you grew up with, okay, I understand it.
Yeah.
But he's a Giants fan. We were talking, he's moving to Philly. I'm talking about converting him, but we were talking about the Commanders and how we're both like, these guys need to learn their role. Like, you were good for 1 year and you saw some flashes, but you kind of lucked your way to the NFC championship game. And then you had 60 hung on your ass.
Yeah. Can I comment on this? Because I have good friends that are Commanders fans. If you look at their regular season, they beat one playoff team.
Yeah.
Without their starting quarterback. They beat Tampa Bay because of a fumble and a last play field goal that hit the upright. Then they beat a Detroit team that was decimated with injuries and a
9
quarterback
starting defensive players out.
And Jared Goff, who is a turnover machine when the chips are down. So you could look at that season and go, hey, we were in the NFC Championship. Or you could look at that and be like, yeah, you didn't beat one playoff team in the regular season. And the playoff teams you did play were damaged goods. I'll give them credit for beating Tampa in Tampa. That's a good game.
Sure.
That game was won until Baker Mayfield fumbled the ball inside their 20, and then they kick a field goal to win. They should have lost there. But I'm glad they got Tampa Bay out of the picture because they're our kryptonite as far as I'm concerned. So they did us a favor. They also sort of did us a favor about beating Detroit, but I think we would have destroyed Detroit.
Yes.
And then they lose 50. They got their comeuppance playing a real playoff team. So
exactly,
they can pump their chest all they want. Hooray for the Commanders because they've been abysmal for decades. But know your role.
Exactly.
This is the year that's going to tell you something. This is the year they're playing a number 2 schedule. This is the year they're playing a good. They're playing the AFC West. They're playing the Central. You're gonna find out who they are very quickly. And I love Jaden Daniels, but come on.
Yeah.
You get Debo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil, and you're pounding your chest. You can have 20 Tunsils. You gave 4 picks up for that guy, the gas mask dude, who's got more penalties than anybody. The only guy that has more penalties is the guard we took from the Texans. So but he's a project, and we have the guy that works on projects. So but I dealt with Commanders fans, and it's amazing to me. It's like, welcome to the party, but you guys are not in the same league.
Listen, if I'm a Commanders fan, I'm talking so much shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you do it once, you're like a locust every 17
When
years.
is the last time? Yeah, when's the last time I've been able to talk even a modicum of trash? Right. So if we see this time after time, we literally saw it the year prior with C.J. Stroud, where now during the offseason, everybody's anointing this guy the next guy, the next face of the NFL. And then now we've got you mentioned it. You're going to have a second place schedule. You're going to have a year full of tape on somebody. right? So now there's a lot of work to be done, right? Jaden Daniels does not have this in the bag. Not to mention he works for a franchise in the Washington Commanders that have historically been shit for a reason, right? So there's so much left that you have to grow still up until this point. You are not there yet, buddy. You're not there, pal. You're not that guy, pal. All right.
They're all like, we got rid of Schneider. Who'd you get? Josh Harris, that guy who's just a businessman buying franchises. He likes the Commanders, but still, it's all a business to him. He doesn't have the passion that our ownership has. And plus, they're anointing this guy. Do they remember Jordan Love, who was going to be the second coming? How'd he do? He had a decent year, but and he had a better supporting cast, and they haven't done much. They say, oh, we're building. But what they've done. I'm glad they took Deebo Samuel because I'd like to kick his ass twice a year.
And they made his non-guaranteed final season fully guaranteed and increased the incentives. So I'm like, I love it. I love that the fact that Commanders think that they're legit and that they're trying to go all in and doing all this stuff. That's more of like a win now thing. Like Deebo isn't a guy you're getting to for longevity.
No,
it's like, oh, we're going for it next year, and we're gonna trade a lot for Laramie Tunsil, and we're gonna do all these moves. It's like, look, you did it once. Congratulations. Do it again.
Yep.
Do it again. This is Deebo seemed to be getting considerably worse. Laramie Tunsil seemed to be regressing, right? You've got a couple of the guys on that team. You've got Bobby Wagner. You're still trotting out the spirit of Bobby Wagner, who's 73 years old, right? You got Austin Eckler, who's 94. This isn't going to cut it, guys.
Yeah.
Far be it from us to talk a lot of trash about all the guys that are leaving our team and not having any of these additions, but that's a conversation for another episode, I think.
Yeah. And I think they won 5 games on the last play of the game.
Yeah.
They beat us
the Cardiac Commanders
on the last play of the game with a false start that nobody called. I don't want to be sour grapes, but if Devontae Smith caught that ball, it's game over.
Oh yeah,
he had 5 turnovers in that.
No, it was, they had everything go their way.
Yeah,
and they won at home against Kenny Pickett and had the officials in their pocket, and they won by 3 at home. Yeah, with CJ gone, with Devontae having a drop that he's never had in his career, with Hurts being ruled out after one drive, with the refs being completely one-sided. Like, congratulations. That all happened, and you won. You did. Congratulations. Yeah. We saw how they celebrated, and we knew at that point they weren't a threat. We knew when they celebrated that emphatically after beating us with this exact situation that I just put out there, and they celebrated to that level. We said, oh, okay, they're not actually a threat. Like, that was their Super Bowl. Them beating Kenny Pickett and the CJGJ-less defense and Devontae Smith making a drop and the refs making abysmal calls, and they win by 3 at home. Okay. That's their peak. Congratulations. Take that, hang the banner, and we saw you in the NFC Championship game, and we showed you what true winning football is.
Amen.
And for the Packers, I can't believe we haven't talked about this, and we'll cover it next episode when they make a decision on the rule and everything. But the Packers putting out this official request to change the brotherly shove due to player safety and pace of play was their other reason behind wanting to change it. Pace of play. What is this, baseball? Like, what are you talking about, pace of play? That makes absolutely no sense. And regardless of the outcome of this decision, I put a tweet out today. The Eagles are going to go out and play foot to throat, belt to ass football next year and just say, you know what? You want to get rid of this play? Fuck you. I'm going to absolutely murder you. Congratulations. You want pace of play? How about you enjoy watching me knee on your nuts when we're up 40 in the 4th?
Amen. Yeah. I think it's crazy to me that they want to outlaw a play that's completely legal. I don't get it.
One of the safest plays. Nobody has gotten injured. You're talking about some of the lowest impact play in football.
Yeah. Which, if any other team had mastered it, would be the greatest thing ever. But it's Philly. Yeah. It's Philly.
I saw I think it was Daniel Tosh what did like a thing about it. They're like, have the Eagles go out and just because there's times where they run it and get 3 yards.
Yeah.
He's like, have them go out and do a 20 play drive of push every single play. Because I mean, you're gonna run it 4 plays, like a game where it's like, you know what, we don't care, we're up, whatever. This is a team. You play the Packers, and you're up 30
in Lambeau.
You're up 30 in the third quarter, and you're like, you know what? If this drive doesn't work, I don't care. Every single, no matter where you are on the field, it's 4 down territory, and you do the brotherly shove 25 times until you score
with AJ Green,
AJ Dillon.
Sorry.
Yeah, AJ Green still has turf toe.
Oh, sorry.
That was like his permanent injury, right?
He always had turf toe.
It's a serious injury.
Oh yeah. Oh, it is. It can be. Shawn, final thought.
I'm ready for baseball season, man. Let's go Phillies. I'm ready to flip the cap upside down and fill it with some soft serve ice cream. Damn it. Let's go Phillies.
Let's go, baby.
There you go.
Doc.
I'm just holding my breath till I find out where Aaron Rodgers goes. I can't rest till I know.
I think you and a lot of other people, really, he's taken every offseason and doing whatever he can to make it all about himself.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Go
I'm
Giants.
with you. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Shawn. Ring that bell, baby.